निवेदन किया कि बात तो ठीक है, लेकिन शुरुआत काशी से हो, फिर आगे चलेंगे। तो ये कमिंग टुगेदर है, केवल ये बिगिनिंग है। ये आगे हम साथ बने रहें, ये जरूरी है। और लक्ष्य को प्राप्त कर सकें, इसके लिए साथ मिल के काम करें, ये उससे भी ज़्यादा जरूरी है। यह कार्यक्रम इसी दिशा में एक छोटा सा प्रयास है, जिसमें हम सभी की सहभागिता और सहयोग संभव है कि एक बड़ी भूमिका अदा कर सके हमारे राष्ट्रीय लक्ष्यों को, शैक्षिक लक्ष्यों को पूरा करने में। एक और इसके पीछे की बात थी, कोई पूछ सकता है कि प्राचार्यों को ही क्यों? वो भी इसलिए क्योंकि एक अध्यापक को अगर कुछ प्राप्त होता है तो जितना वो उसको बांटेगा या जितना उसका उपयोग अपने विद्यालय या समाज में करेगा, उसकी तुलना में प्राचार्य निश्चित तौर से ज़्यादा करेगा। इसलिए शुरुआत कप्तान से, फिर बाकी टीम के साथ। इसके पीछे का यह भी एक भाव था। आप सभी को यहाँ आने में, यहाँ रहने में संभव है कि थोड़ी बहुत तकलीफ़ें भी होंगी। रात को लाइट नहीं थी या इस तरह की और भी दिक्कतें होंगी, उनके लिए मैं अभी
development in this country and the role of leadership. As a matter of fact, the fast changing world wherein knowledge has become the order of the day, to the extent that we are now conceiving it as the knowledge world. First of all, it needs to be clarified that the connotation knowledge society is not new to ancient Indian wisdom. India had been a knowledge society since ancient days. The Buddhist monasteries in 17th century before Christ and the Nalanda University of 3rd century AD bear testimony to it. It's only now that Western world is recognizing the importance of knowledge as such. We have been worshippers of knowledge and also creators of world-class knowledge much before the world has come to recognize the role of knowledge. However, at this juncture, the narrower conceptualization of education is to prepare the youth for enablement of his personality, for individual accomplishment, and more explicitly, the role of education is being recognized as a very important instrument of equipping the personality of the youth so that they could become meaningful economic agents and seeking employment in industry and service sector of the economy, so as to contribute to the growth of national income, also feeling self-accomplishment.
Being a staff in certain areas, isn't it? We have progressed a lot in certain areas. In certain areas, we are just taking baby steps. And the nation building process is at a very advanced stage for certain sections of the society, and it is in a very beginning stage for certain other sections of our society. some historian had once mentioned about India that in India you can meet people from different centuries because there are different levels of growth. And you come from an area which is kind of traditionally seen as the periphery of Indian developmental story, and I think you have enormous responsibility on your shoulders. Now, when we are struck with a situation where we have enormous amount of stress because everybody wants some kind of self-expression and to sort of celebrate their cultural identity, their own identity, and there's a lot of heavy pressure on the core, on the center, because it's like a mother trying to deal with too many children. Okay? And all of us, as kind of having the responsibility, have to think alike, not saying the same thing, not doing the same thing, addressing different needs for an overall common goal of integration. Never should forget that Swarupataha all of us are one, and all of us are not different from one to other. Of course, in Christianity, in Islam, or in Vaishnava and Shaivic traditions, God is the ultimate reality. But in the Advaita Vedanta, where I belong, the ultimate reality is actually without name and form. So, Maya Upadhi Sahita, so Upadhika Chaitanyam, that is Ishvara. Ishvara wears a magic hat. When Brahman is given a magic hat, he becomes Ishvara, he creates. Brahman is Nirvikara, Nishguna, Nirvishesha, Nirguna, right? Can you talk to Brahman? Are you different from Brahman? If you are different from Brahman, Brahman is not Brahman, because Brahman is Sarvatmaka, is Sarvavidyamana. None of you can be outside of Brahman or out of that ultimate reality. Anybody who says God never should forget that Swarupataha all of us are one, and all of us are not different from one to other. Of course, in Christianity, in Islam, or in Vaishnava and Shaivic traditions, God is the ultimate reality. But in the Advaita Vedanta, where I belong, the ultimate reality is actually without name and form. So, Maya Upadhi Sahita, so Upadhika Chaitanyam, that is Ishvara. Ishvara wears a magic hat. When Brahman is given a magic hat, he becomes Ishvara, he creates. Brahman is Nirvikara, Nishguna, Nirvishesha, Nirguna, right? Can you talk to Brahman? Are you different from Brahman? If you are different from Brahman, Brahman is not Brahman, because Brahman is Sarvatmaka, is Sarvavidyamana. None of you can be outside of Brahman or out of that ultimate reality. Anybody who says God
was the richest. And now every scholar across the world acknowledges. They may not acknowledge for some political reasons, but every genuine scholar acknowledges that we were really the Vishnu Gurus. So what is required? Our science and technology was at the peak. One example, for example, there can be hundreds of examples, hundreds of literary works can be quoted, and you all know them. Astronomy, for example, that mathematical calculations your supercomputers are doing, our rishis did it long time back. So you can imagine what was the scientific tradition. So what is required is that we require the resurgence of that knowledge creation tradition. And once we do it, there's no doubt, and at least I have no doubt in my mind, that we'll be academic leaders and Vishwa Gurus. Why Vishwa Gurus? Because besides this scientific technological knowledge creation, we are the only people on this earth, Mother Earth, who believe in universalism. We are the only people on this Mother Earth who believe in Ekatma, who believe in Sanatan, who believe in freedom. Swamiji said that he is a student of Swami Vivekananda. We all know about that lecture of Swamiji which was given at Chicago. It only talks of what? Freedom. We are the champions of freedom, not US. So resurgence of India is required. And I tell you, I'll come to the topic straight away because the time is very limited. Academic leaders have the most important role in this resurgence. And understanding academic leadership is therefore very important. I am a student of education. I have done a PhD on educational leadership only. I have studied educational leadership and taught leadership at the Banaras Hindu University for almost 35 years. I understand what leadership is, what academic leadership is. I would have taken at least 3-4 hours to explain all the facets of it. But however, in 20 minutes, I just like to give you a brief idea of it, a glimpse of it. And I think you will receive my message. Unlike all other managements, you could have named this program an educational management program. No, education is not management. Therefore, we have talked of leadership, academic leadership, leadership of the principal. Why? We have to understand the nature of an academic institution. Now, in the academic institution, particularly, even it is applicable at the school level, however, at the university and college level, one amongst the faculty is chosen to be a leader. This implies that the structure of educational leadership and management is T-shaped, not vertical only. It is horizontal, more horizontal than vertical. Now all your colleagues are equally qualified. There may be many of the professors or teachers who may be even more qualified than you, who may be more visionary than you, who may be having brighter ideas than you, who may be more hardworking than you. Another important thing to understand, because I have to move fast because of the time. Now, for example, I read a book, and in that book I read that a principal or the head of the institution or a vice chancellor is the captain of the ship, wherein an institution is imagined by that author as a ship. I don't agree to this. Because a ship is a system wherein all individual instruments are tuned to work in an integrated fashion, which the ship is, and the ship moves. Rule the hearts of your academic fraternity and your students. Provide autonomy, ensure support and mechanism, freedom of work with world-class facilities to operate at front lines of new knowledge. We all know in the scientific community, new knowledge is generated only through newer technologies. It doesn't come through talks. It doesn't come through talks. It comes through high-speed internet. It comes through high-speed DNA sequencers. It comes through frontline equipments. And it comes through that frontline support.
And then I'll touch upon diversity in the institutions. I'll talk about a little bit about teaching pedagogy, which I think Professor Rathod also mentioned and Swamiji also mentioned about teaching pedagogy. And then, in academic institutions, we frequently face dissents. Should we be worried about dissents or should we handle it? Is it important? We'll look at some of those aspects. Then I'll briefly touch upon new education, national education policy. And then India has to be at the center of everything that we do as an academic leader. I think my job has been reduced to 10% by Professor Rathod, Swamiji, and Raghu Vaisa. So I think we have to look at developing students which keep India at the center, and we'll look at the role of principals, and finally I talk about education in Indian languages. So this is the agenda for next 45 minutes. So let's understand leader. So what is a leader? So leader is loyalty, excellent human being, accountable, adaptable, dynamic, endurance, realistic and reasonable. These are the extremely important qualities for any leader. And leader should create more leaders. Leader should not be that I will remain at the top. A good leader is the one who enables others to become leaders, who pulls people along with them to higher levels. So the qualities that are essential for a leader is that he should have vision, he should have the ability to motivate people around him, he should have empathy. Many times when we are in leadership position, we don't have empathy. Empathy is a very, very strong virtue of a leader. Then he should be creative and he should be thorough in whatever he is doing. Professor Rathod mentioned about it. You have to be scholar. Anything that you do, it should have the hallmark of quality in it. And then he should be good in managing teams. He should be good in building teams. He should be taking calculated risks. I don't want a leader who takes blind risks. But I don't want a leader who doesn't take any risk. I want a leader who takes calculated risks to take his organization forward. And he should seek continuous improvement. He should keep his team on the toes, because without keeping his constituency on the toes, we can't make changes. We can't make desired changes. And he should be taking the decisions. Many times, leaders avoid taking decisions because if you don't take decisions, there is no dissent. No problem. Life is cool. You don't take decisions. But then that's a disaster for academic institutions. So leader should be able to take decisions. So if you look at the roles, the most important role is that the leader should be a strategist, he should be an organization builder, and he should be an absolute performer on all counts. Now let's look at some of the traits of good leaders. There are many, many good leaders that are shown here, right from Gandhiji to Vivekananda to Dhirubhai Ambani to our current Prime Minister. The most important traits of a leader, which you as principals also should have, is that you should listen first. You should be having creative leadership, you should be a team builder, you should take calculated risk, you should see the big picture. Don't get into complaints, small complaints. You should be able to see where it is coming, why. The Indian team was underdogs. Nobody was predicting that they will win. It was Kapil Dev's heroics that made us that we win the World Cup. Transparency on NST was the hallmark of Barack Obama and Nelson Mandela, and because of this transparency and honesty, they grew from the grassroots. They were grassroots leaders. They came from nowhere. They did not have aristocratic backgrounds, but they rose to highest prominence. Similarly, motivation to speech. I'm not a fan of Hitler, but Hitler was a good speaker. He could motivate an entire race to do whatever bad things they did. So he was a leader. He did bad things, no doubt about it. But he could lead his people and make them believe in what they should be doing. And then there are people like Dhirubhai Ambani who had a very clear vision to build an empire. So these are the leaders who have global imprints, and these are the virtues which are extremely important in leaders. Now if you look at the leadership of the higher order, there are shlokas here. I think Swamiji also mentioned about the leadership from Bhagavad Gita, and there is a shlok here. Yada yada charati shrestha stata devtaro jana sa yat pramanam kurute lok stan nuvartate. Students, imitators. So we have to be first persons who, whatever we teach, we have to first demonstrate by example. Now let us understand the difference between manager and leader. Manager and leader, there is a clear-cut difference, and this is where I would request all of you to be very careful and understand that you have to be leader, not manager of academic institute. Manager creates goals, he focuses on things, he makes plans, he's progress-oriented, he organizes, follows rules, and builds processes. Whereas the leader actually motivates, he inspires, he creates vision, his focus is on the people, he is result-oriented, he influences people, he shapes people, he builds relationships. And very subtly put by this gentleman who made Apple, he says management is about persuading people to do things that they do not want to do. So people are not interested, but you make them do, that is the job of a manager. And a leader is about inspiring people to do things they never thought they could. So a leader will make people believe that they can do what otherwise they think that they cannot. So this is the quality of a leader. So this time sense, if you're given 30 minutes and you take 45 minutes, Or if you are given 2 o'clock to meet somebody and you are not in the office till 4 o'clock, people will lose respect for you. Don't respect for others' work. If you don't respect, if somebody has worked hard, come up with something, and you just say it's all crap, then you will lose respect. If you give non-achievable targets, this is also a disaster. If you abuse your position to take favors, small favors, many people tend to go into small favors, then you completely lose. Now coming back to the academic leadership. So now we have understood what is leadership, or on a large scale we have also understood what is the difference between manager and a leader. Let's understand when we bring it down to our ecosystems of academic leadership, how we translate that. And please feel free to ask questions if you have any. So functions of the academic leadership is that they should set goals. A leader's most important function is to set the goals for each team member and encourage them to work confidently and enthusiastically. And then to do that, organize the team and then take initiatives. And then cooperation among the employees. We have staff, we have teachers, we have students. What policies do we make that everybody cooperates with everybody? So teachers should cooperate with staff should cooperate with students, and only then a good organization can function well. How to motivate our own people? How to give direction? Direction is extremely important. In which direction you will take this? When you take over as principal, you should set yourself some goals that this is by the end of 4 years or 5 years, whatever your tenure is, this is the main difference I will make. This is the footprint that I want to leave at the end of 3 years. So you should set goals and set directions. And then of course you should liaison between different stakeholders, and to achieve your goals you have to make the policy making and so on. So this is what boils down to making academic leadership. So in order to make effective academic leadership for the principals of the college, I think Professor Rathod mentioned first point. Absolutely I agree. If you are not having good academic background, believe me, everybody is equal. Teachers are as good as you or better than you. Strong in your area, you need to reserve some time for that. You have to set goals, communicate the goals clearly to your constituencies, and insist on accountability. If you don't make people accountable, no organization will work. Be strategic, but at the same time be diplomatic. Faculty to be given enough time and resources for academic upgrades. Faculty should not be just for teaching. They should also be upgraded, because that actually energizes them. Okay, make efforts to establish a collegial information. It takes time for all the results to show up. Once you do all this, it's not a magic wand. It's not if you do it today, tomorrow you will not see results. But over time, 6 months, 1 year, if you do that, you will see marked improvement in the outcomes. Okay. What are the challenges? So as I mentioned, trust deficit. If your constituency loses, trust in you, or there is general degradation in the society, then you will face challenges. Nowadays, there are lots of mechanisms of making complaints. You just need one email, one SMS. So there is ease of making complaints through variety of mechanisms. People can reach different levels, and this is really a big challenge, how to effectively manage. There are so many rules and regulations and restrictions, so it's easy to overlook and make mistakes. But then what Raghu, take fearless decisions. Crisis can be converted into opportunity. And the same thing applies to institutions, academic institutions also. So see what happened, we all know 1945, the country was converted into a rubble because of nuclear explosions. It was a catastrophe, human tragedy of the highest. But they converted it into opportunity. And today, if you look at Japan, Japan today is third largest GDP in the world. Okay, it's ranked second Asian country in global peace index. How did they achieve this? Same thing can be done in our organizations also. How did Japan do it? They did it collectively. They got up as a country. It was a collective rebuilding, collective adrenal flow. So everybody started focusing on rebuilding the country in the factories, rebuilding using latest technology. They maximized on available opportunities. In fact, there was a Korean War. They offered their land for the American bombers, and then They use that opportunity to earn money and build resources for themselves. And then quality. They focused on quality. So you can see that right from early on, 1952 onwards, they started making most sophisticated products in the world in Japan. Okay, and this is what happened. You see, this is the GDP by the institution. When the institution is the infrastructure, buildings, equipment, etc., and leadership equally is an equal partner. The third pillar of the research and academic excellence. So, building institutions for academic excellence involves, all the entire organization should have a common purpose, common goal. Unless that common goal is decided, the institution will not make progress towards it. It should be based on some social value. It should serve the public purpose, because ultimately, all the academic institutions are public funded in one way or the other. Even private institutions are public funded that way. So somebody is paying the fee. So you should look at what is the purpose it serves to the public, and then it is bound by a set of rules, and it is often a seat of higher level. 5 best practices that you can adopt in your institution to make it a center of excellence. One is that you can, in your colleges, you can think about smart campuses. You can start doing automation and adoption of technology into various facets of the administration that you are doing. You can do student centricity of the activities. You can do student engagement of the institution. And then, this is extremely important. You should invest in faculty development. And not only faculty development, also faculty appraisal. You have to evaluate them, how they are doing. Because ultimately they are getting money from private exchange. So what I mean to say here is that the students should be of all academic institutions. They teach, they lead the research group, they advise, they have long tenures. Long tenures means you just hire them 35 years, they are there. It could have both positive as well as negative connotation. If you hire a right person, he will be productive for 35 years. If you hire a wrong person, he will be a financial burden for you and a nuisance for the next 35 years. So this has both connotations, so one has to be careful, and there is a need for letting people go. Those who are underperformer, there should be some way to let them go. Recruiting good faculty and ensuring good output is critical to the success of the academic institution. What attracts good faculty to your institution? So there are 3 factors. One is there should be welcoming environment. There should be positive. Professor Rathod also talked about it. Diversity enhances productivity. It increases the fire in the belly for all. And fire in the belly is so important for the growth of any organization. Stakeholders in competition will deprecate newcomers, but look at overall indicators and trend, and they show that it increases the fire in the belly. And exposure to a wide range of perspectives, ideas, and cultural backgrounds naturally encourages students and faculty to develop open-mindedness later in the life. If I have people from Northeast, from South, from all places in BHU, when these students graduate, they will have appreciation for people from Northeast. They will have appreciation for people from South India. They will. So requirements are with computational thinking, this becomes creative computational thinking. And when this computational thinking is mixed with problem solving, this becomes technology enhanced problem solving. And when all of this is put together, this becomes co-creative computational thinking problem solving. And this is what we have to disciplines. A mechanical engineer means just mechanical engineer. Okay. Few higher education institutions taught in local language. Actually, only one that I know. Only Anna University used to teach in Tamil. 4.7% people in the world speak Hindi. Spanish 6.15, English is 5.4. So, is English global language? No. Arabic 4.43, Portuguese, Bengali is 3.1, Russian, Turkish. And if you look at this second level of circle, you will find a lot of Indian language, 1%, 2%, 3%. Much higher than Hebrew. So, India is a ocean of languages. India is like United States, with every state speaking different language. This figure shows the numbers. Bengali is spoken by 83 million, 8.3%. Telugu 74 million, Urdu 51 million, Oriya. So you can see Hindi is spoken by 42.2 crores. So India is a ocean of language with a present unity in diversity. Again, example of unity in diversity. And we have to preserve this diversity.